Good. Okay. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for this opportunity today to share a work in progress we are doing with Anna Maria. I'm Pavlos Panayotidis. I'm doing my PhD at the Mixed Reality Lab. I work on creative applications of emerging technologies with a focus on theater making. With Anna Maria, we would like to share with you a project we are putting together to explore how theater engages with speculative realities related to new technologies. Anna Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Anna Maria Piscopani. I'm a research scholar in IT law. I work in the last 4 years in Horizon Institute of Digital Research. And today we're going to talk about this very interesting relationship between theatrical plays, drama techniques, and responsible innovation. We will discuss a bit about recent related scholarship, but also trying to focus a bit on the benefits of this discussion around those things for AI, RI researchers, different stakeholders, but also the general public and audience. So, Pavlos.
So we are looking at plays that imagine speculative futures shaped by technology. As we said, it's a work in progress, a starting point, or perhaps a seed we would like to grow into something through conversation and collaboration. So we'd really welcome your thoughts, feedback, and ideas. Well, Anna Maria and I run a small group where we analyze plays, and there were a few of them that caught our attention because they deal with ethical and societal implications of innovation. After the Responsible Digital Futures meeting last spring, we had a discussion and thought maybe there is a way to connect the process of dramaturgical analysis to responsible innovation. We realized that many plays build entire worlds around what the future could be or what people fear it might become because of technology. We have some examples here. The most interesting of all probably is R.U.R, an old play, 100 years old, which is the origin of the term robot. This is where the term robot was first introduced. We have The Nether by Jennifer Halley on virtual reality and digital crime. We will get back to those two plays later. Others deal with human cloning, with the fragmentation of identity, and so many more. New ones are certainly being written as we speak. So we have two main questions that we seek to explore. First of all, can systematic dramaturgical analysis of sci-fi plays help anticipate, reflect on, and engage with the ethical and social dimensions of emerging technologies? And also, could such analysis become a bridge between creative speculation and ethical design fiction? Ethical design fiction is our framework. It's about using storytelling and world building to think through the ethical implications of design. It means creating these speculative narratives where prototypes or design ideas are imagined as if they already exist and as if they are part of a real world that we can step into. And by doing that, it aims to give designers, stakeholders, policymakers a space to reflect on what these designs might be like, but also what they might feel like, their usability, desirability, and what kind of social impact they could have. Based on that, we are proposing to analyze existing professionally written science fiction plays that already contain complex networks of technological systems, social norms, and a whole range of characters who represent different stakeholders. We believe that might be worth exploring because those plays are crafted over long periods of time to be plausible, feel real, and be interesting, as they are intended to be used to create professional theater productions. So, but why playtexts? What's special about them? Why not novels or other types of science fiction? A playtext occupies a distinctive position among narrative forms because it is bounded yet open. Unlike a novel, which offers a complete set of events, a play provides only dialogue and stage directions, not even that sometimes. Essentially, it's a scaffold to imagine a world. By design, plays withhold details, inviting interpretation before they can be fully placed. In that sense, they provide an opportunity for creative, collective, and multi-layered engagement. I will now pass over to Anna Maria, who will share how dramaturgy has already been used in RI contexts before we articulate our suggested approach.
Yes, thank you, Pavlos. So there is a number of scholars that have identified this really interesting relation between theatre and technology and wrote about that from different angles, perspectives, and with different purposes. And so they either were inspired by classic science fiction theatre. Pavlos already mentioned that the term robot itself was invented by Czechoslovakian dramaturg Karel Čapek, and the theatre play that it was Rossum's Universal Robot was written in 1921, and it became a very huge theatrical success both in Europe and United, and introduced generally the term. And the core of this very influential play, I don't know if you already read that, is themes that we often discuss around AI ethics, about robot ethics. And just a few words around the plot. So there is a small group of inventors and investors that created a world where robots would be used mostly in factories. But eventually they develop human emotions and intelligence, and of course demand freedom from their creators. And these technologies promised that these creatures promised to be used, and that was the hope and from their inventors, to be used for augmenting productivity, from liberating humans from labor, from achieving humanity's prosperity. But it didn't really ended up well. So Christofori and Miller, by analyzing this plot, they discuss themes around how artificial creatures should be produced, for what purposes, with what limitations, if they should be anthropomorphic or not, how it will impact the society and workforce, and of course issues around ethics and responsibility. Because the inventors did not really foresee, and we see that very clearly in the play, how these technologies would actually impact the human workforce, how they will interact with humans, how humans will be tempted to give them intelligence and emotions, how when they got that, they will try to imitate human behavior that is kind of constructed in power relationships and often end in war. So they decided very normally to destroy humanity in order to survive, because that's what they learned from past humanity actions. But they realized that without humans, they could not be able to survive in the end themselves. In other words, it opens a very interesting and also open discussion about robots. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I was off. I'm back now. Should I move to the next slide?
Yeah. So all scholars have initiated those kind of discussions with modern drama. So, for example, we have Joe Penhal's drama, which is called Landscape in Weapon, and it was written in 2007, but it's really sounds really familiar because it is about Ned, a brilliant inventing engineer who came up with a very new form of unmanned air vehicle of lethal precision. He believed that he will use to eliminate collateral damage and civilian deaths. Basically, he created the drones, and he believed that they will be mostly used to prevent death of civilians. But all the play is about how his Danish brother, and of course the weapon industry, tries to make him understand that his initial hope is not what the impact of this technology would actually be. And it's again, the core is around human responsibility and the importance to holistically foresee how humans will interact with these technologies and can actually change a lot in humans' life. And so let's go to the next slide. Great. And other scholars have experimented a lot with the theatrical techniques. They try to use the theater dialogue, which is with conflict, with different discussions, with characters, as a methodology to help the public engagement with those kind of debates and discussions. They tried to identify different as a method of to engage different stakeholders, but also the complex dynamics that they bring into the table, because they have different interests, they have different causes of using or creating or implementing those technologies, which are very, very complex as an additional method, or they actually created some plays based on those technologies and ask the reaction from the public. Next slide, please. And of course, some of them got into exactly something similar that we're proposing, that it's around scenario analysis and design fiction, and trying to use that as a methodological approach to engage with undergraduate students. And say one more thing, that it's also an opportunity to conceptualize ethics and understand that it's a very creative practice that is inseparable from scientific technology and research and development, and understand also that these technologies, as they say, that I find it very interesting, is a kind of forms of life. It's a rich environment that we have to, when we engage with them and understand them. Pavlos, back to you.
Thank you. So, what is play analysis? Play analysis is not reading a play. It's the process theater makers use to uncover, or some would say invent, structures of meaning inside the play text. It works with what the text explicitly gives, like the dialogues, but also what it leaves unsaid, intentions, emotions, and relationships. It's a systematic and iterative process, reading the same play several times, each time focusing on a different aspect. So here we have some examples of those aspects, some of the main phases of play analysis. When reading a play, the analyst is looking for things like given circumstances, the fundamental facts set by the play, time, place, backstories. Those establish the ground on which the story stands. They are looking for the world rules, the logic of the play's universe, including its social systems and cultural norms. The interesting thing here is that they can be as unrealistic as the playwright wants, as long as they are self-consistent. So there's a lot of freedom to imagine however strange and bizarre and complex worlds they want. We have the characters, the people of the play, defined by what they say, what we can deduct that they do. Remember, the play doesn't say what they do. Typically, it says what they say, how they are treated by others. They embody desires, fears, values. They can make abstract ethical questions more personal and relatable. And that links to the next thing that analysis is looking at, the conflict, the central struggle that drives the drama. Conflicts embody ethical and social tensions, but they create situations where those become living axioms. At the end, all those aspects are brought together by a synthesis, bringing them in the way to see the play's spine and core purpose. So, let's see how this type of analysis, or at least a little bit of how this type of analysis can be applied to a sci-fi play like The Nether. Before we begin, just a quick content warning. The Nether includes some difficult themes like suicide and child sexual abuse. So if you'd prefer not to engage with that material, please feel free to step away from this session at any time. So the play imagines a time when the internet has evolved into the Nether, which is a fully immersive virtual world where people can become avatars of any form they choose. They inhabit environments that feel real to all senses. This is the special thing about this technology. Everything feels 100% real. Within this perfect virtual reality lies the Hideaway, a Victorian garden built by a designer called Mr. Sims. It is elegant, beautiful, but also deeply disturbing. It's a space where users can enact their darkest fantasies, including interactions with child avatars. At first glance, it looks like a potential case of child exploitation. The main character is Detective Morris, who interrogates Mr. Sims to uncover what exactly the Hideaway is and whether criminal activities take place in it. In the meantime, Morris's unit sent in the Nether an undercover agent that goes by the name Mr. Goodnut to test the world from within. Once inside, this agent engages with Iris, a little girl avatar, in the same way that other users do. He initiates encounters, but they gradually become more sexual and violent. In a way, he takes the Hideaway by performing the very acts he set out to condemn. As the story unfolds, we learn that Iris is not a little girl at all, but she is the avatar chosen by Cendric Doyle, a 65-year-old teacher. Morris and Sims engaged in a very heated confrontation towards the end over responsibility, which ultimately led to Sims revealing his server's location and Morris's permanently shutting down the Hideaway. This dialogue takes place towards the end of the play. There was a real girl, the daughter of my neighbor down the street. We would get together in person then, all the neighbors. This was a long time ago. I couldn't stop thinking about her. She had hair the sun played in, and a laugh that came out of her like magic. I wanted to get inside. I pretended to be her friend. I posed to her family as a young, harmless, as a harmless uncle type. One night, I got her alone in her own room. We were laughing, and I reached over and grabbed her, and she looked at me so startled, and I found it in myself to let her go. I went home to my computer, and that's where I've stayed. You don't know what you do, detective, putting me out into the world. The world is still the place we have to learn to be. You are free to go, Mr. Sims. You are free. There was a plot twist because Morris pressured Sims to reject Iris's, so Doyle's, request to gain a permanent existence in the Hideaway. Doyle took his own life. And that's what pushed Sims to agree to shut down the Nether, the Hideaway. So the final scene restages word for word a deeply disturbing interaction we had witnessed earlier between Mr. Sims and Iris. But now, instead of a middle-aged man and a child, we see it played out between Sims and the 65-year-old Doyle, who has already taken his life. The audience sees that the disturbing encounter was in fact an interaction between two grown men. Perhaps it can be read as their desperate struggle to feel intimacy beyond the limits of their physical bodies. Now, this is the plot. Typically, play analysis is a slow, collaborative process, something that unfolds through discussion and reflection, and the multiple readings we said earlier. We cannot do that now, but for context, I'll share an example, the analysis we did with Anna Maria on one of the scenes, just to give you a sense of how this could work in practice. So we would normally start reading a scene like scene 7. And then we try, if we focus on the conflict analysis of all the analysis type we can do, we start by asking some questions. Who's the protagonist? Who's the character whose needs and actions drive the conflict? Not necessarily the character that appears the most. Who's the opposing force, a person or power with goals that directly oppose those of the protagonist? Not necessarily a villain. The introductory incident, the moment when the central issue of the conflict is first introduced, the moment of engagement, when the protagonist commits to action and we see what they want to achieve based on how they try to achieve what their main purpose is. We have the climax where the conflict reaches its highest intensity, and typically this is the moment when we realize what exactly the conflict is about. And we have the denouement, the aftermath, the resolution of the conflict, and that shows the consequences and establishes the new balance. Now, when we try to focus on those moments and points, we can, it's not easy. Sometimes there are disagreements, so we reach out an agreement at some point. This is where we think the main issue is introduced. This is how it escalates. And I'll just read to you some of those parts. Morris asks, how can you, in good conscience, infect people with this context? Sims replies, people come to my realm of their own free will. Later, the nether is becoming our contextual framework for being, so the same laws should apply. Sims replies, it's not the same way of being, it's imagination. People should be free in their own imagination. Now, up to this point, that's, with all the in-between stuff, that could be read as almost philosophical discussion. Freedom of imagination, what are the limits, do I have the right to do whatever I want with consenting adults, and so on. However, in the climax, we can see the following phrase. Mr. Woodnut, he's your agent. He got to Iris. What did you do to her? And Morris replies, it's what you did to her, Mr. Sims. Morris knows that Iris, so Doyle, is dead. Mr. Sims doesn't know that, but knows that something happened to her. And we can see a little bit of a blame game here. So I would assume, in my analysis at least, that the protagonist, Morris, doesn't want to discuss the limits of imagination. In reality, she wants Sims to take responsibility for the suicide of Doyle. If we accept, that's an interpretation, but that's how it works here. So on the other, Sims defends his and his customers' right to freely act on their desires, but also defends his business. This is not, he has interest in the nether. If the main dramatic question is who is responsible for the harm caused by the engagement with the nether, the detective seems to believe that it's the designer's fault, although she orchestrated the events that led to Doyle's suicide. We can see there are many layers of complexity in that kind of discussion. It's not, there's no easy answer. Another thing we can do is create a stakeholder map, a character map, which can be read as a stakeholder map. We have the moderator and moral enforcer. We have the architect of the whole place. We have the user. And at the same time, we have their avatars, which look like different characters, the investigator and the virtual embodiment of the user. All those are in complex relationships to each other. This is a way, it's a very nice trick that theater makers use. Describe the relationship with just a verb, what each character does to the other. So we can see Morris manipulating Doyle, Doyle resisting Morris. We can see Morris accusing Sims, who defies Morris. Sims controls Iris, and Iris adores Sims. And Mr. Woodnut abuses Iris, while Iris seduces Mr. Woodnut. But that Morris, Woodnut are the same person, and Doyle, Iris are the same person as well. So in that reality, we have all this mess of complexity to figure out who's responsible for what. Another useful thing is to see how the characters end up. What's the consequence of all this thing? Morris starts to save people from the hideaway and ends up compromised. Sims starts by trying to find a place to channel his urges and ends up exposed and exiled. Doyle seeks intimacy and ends up dead. So this is a good point to pause. The discussion can last forever. But what's hopefully has become in a way evident is that we are looking at a fictional yet embodied ecosystem of embodied in a sense that if you haven't read the play, but if we read the play and imagine it, sometimes we get to see those people, feel their desires, their emotions. We can see technologies in action, institutions, social norms, all interacting and shaping one another in unpredictable ways. If that works well, ethical tensions can be felt. So I will hand over to Anna Maria again, who will, what will you do, Anna Maria? You need to get unmuted.
One of the very interesting things around that is exactly what Pavlos mentioned, that we see something that we don't often discuss in responsible innovation. We think the cons and pros, we think benefits and risks, but we don't really see so much this societal complexity and the moral complexity, and that's a lot of findings of previous research on that shows the same thing, so we hope the same. But besides that, one of the very interesting things that I find in this really interesting relation between drama and RRI is also one of the other aspects that scholars give, and it's around how they define something that is they call as a technological drama. They say that, you know, as new technologies emerge and come to light, they became in a state, media give that opportunity to become something that people learn about through media, and also try in some in various ways of kind of regulate also the interpretations favorably for those kind of new technologies, like a dramaturg kind of sometimes can do. And so this media stage is about technology. They reflect and discuss and create a lot of public reactions around them. So part of this is also how, next slide please, how the media discuss about when drama is stages, either classic drama like Karel Čapek's in new productions, like in this 2017 production by National Youth Theatre, or next slide please, or new productions like The Nether that was presented in 2015, or next slide please, or new drama specifically created to discuss now AI or RI. That's like the opera inspired by Luditz, and ethical issues about AI. That's a new play that's going to play in theaters this winter. So as you've seen in the previous slides, there is around prophecy, those kind of plays that they probably are prophetical, the dramaturgs are prophetical, but in reality, by presenting those plays by theatrical critics like prophetic, the responsibility part is often is not presented as clear as it should be. And basically what we see is that this kind of theater, the science fiction theater, most of the times talks about the reality of a specific period. It's just that the power dynamics, how power uses technology in different periods of time is basically the same. So it creates the same tensions, the same problems, the same ethical issues. So I think it's a great opportunity that we have this kind of new drama presented in theaters for us as RI researchers to discuss with the audience about that aspect of responsibility, and understand that nowadays they are users of the technologies. Sometimes they are developers of these technologies, because the democratization of AI, generative AI, give this opportunity to people. And I think that's a very great opportunity for us to highlight those kind of things around that. Pavlos, back to you.
Thank you. So how we think this might work in practice. we would like to see such a method to be applied in workshops with technologists, RI researchers, policymakers, perhaps all of them together. Choose plays that have characters that represent all of those people. Analyze them in some of those aspects that are useful, because some of those are mainly for theater makers to do their work. Explore how technology shape reality, rules, and relationships. Try to surface the tensions where values, responsibilities, and desires collide. Consider who decides, who is affected, what consequences follow, at least in those fictional versions of reality. Then try to reframe to design. Turn those insights into what-if questions for real-world systems, practices, or policies. And reframe play analysis in a way that it uses Area 4P as compass. Use anticipation, reflection, engagement, and action to connect speculative understanding with responsible innovation. So that was it. We would like to invite your reflections on those ideas, whether you think an approach of this kind might have a place within the responsible innovation practice. We would also very much value any thoughts or suggestions you might have about alternative directions or ways this could be developed. And finally, if this resonates with your own interests and you see potential for collaboration, we would be very happy to continue this conversation beyond today's session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Pavlos and Anna Maria. And let me quickly click on stop recording. Stop. Right.